You're walking toward a camp. It's the Canadian Arctic, sometime in the early 1900s, and you already know, before you get there, that you're about to kill a man. Not in a rage, not a fight that got out of hand. This was decided days ago, calmly, by people who aren't even here right now. You barely know the guy you're walking toward. You don't hate him. This isn't personal at all, which is somehow the most unsettling part. You're doing this because your entire community, every fire, every family, every person who has a say, independently landed on the same conclusion. This man has already killed 5 people. If nobody stops him, he keeps going. There's no jail out here, no judge, no badge. So the group did the only thing available to it. It decided, together, that he had to die, and it picked 2 people to carry that decision out. You're one of them. This actually happened. His name was Pugnana, and what you're about to learn is that this wasn't some savage outlier moment in human history. It was the extreme edge of a system nearly every human society on Earth quietly built, refined, and depended on for tens of thousands of years. We just don't usually think about it this directly, because it's uncomfortable, and also because most of us have never had to personally walk towards someone with the intention of ending their life on behalf of a group vote. Let's fix that. Let's talk about punishment. Quick definition, because it matters. Punishment isn't just something bad happens to you. A lion eating a gazelle isn't punishment. Punishment is specifically when a group deliberately makes someone suffer because they broke a shared rule. That's it. Sounds so obvious you've probably never once questioned it. It's just background noise of being alive. Cut someone off in traffic, get honked at, that's basically a punishment, a tiny one, and you don't even clock it as a concept. But here's the thing almost nobody stops to ask. Why does this exist at all? Because most animals genuinely don't do this. Not really. And figuring out why humans do is going to take us somewhere much darker and much stranger than you're expecting. Start here. You're an early hominid. No language yet. Maybe no fire. Just a body, an empty stomach, and a troop around you that has exactly one rule. Whoever's strongest gets what they want. If a smaller individual gets in the way of the big guy doesn't punish him for breaking a rule. There is no rule. He just wins. Every single time. That's not justice. That's just Tuesday. If chimpanzees had Tuesdays. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent years watching wild chimps and years actually living among human hunter-gatherer societies, and his summary of ape life is refreshingly blunt. Strong over weak, full stop, no appeals process, no comment section. So somewhere between that and an entire Arctic community calmly voting to execute a repeat killer for everyone's protection, something enormous had to change in how humans organize themselves. And the direction that change went is the part that should genuinely surprise you. Picture a hunter-gatherer band, something like 30 people, tied together by survival more than blood. One of them starts acting like a chimp alpha, strong, good hunter, and slowly he starts assuming the rules that apply to everyone else don't apply to him. More meat for him. More say in decisions. Maybe he starts looking at someone else's partner like ownership is negotiable. In a chimp troop, this plays out exactly how you'd expect. Strength wins, movie's over. But in a human band, something stranger happens. The group doesn't cave. And they also don't do the obvious thing and just fight him. Most of them would lose, and everyone knows it. Instead, they do something almost petty. They start talking about him behind his back. According to Boehm's research, which covers dozens of hunter-gatherer societies across basically every inhabited continent, gossip was consistently the very first weapon deployed against a bully. Not a spear. Gossip cost nothing, required zero muscle. And in a community of 30 people where your entire reputation is your net worth, your credit score, and your insurance policy rolled into one, it worked with unsettling efficiency. If the whispering doesn't slow him down, and bullies never take a hint on the first attempt, it escalates. Stage 2. Ridicule. Not whispered anymore, said to his face in front of everyone, on purpose. In multiple documented hunter-gatherer cultures, a hunter who came home boasting about a genuinely impressive kill would get mocked for it, immediately, by his own campmates. Not because the kill wasn't good, because the group was actively, collectively paranoid about what an arrogant, self-satisfied hunter might turn into if his ego got even a little room to grow. You drag home the best kill of the season, expecting applause, and your own cousin looks at the animal and goes, loudly, in front of the entire camp, seen bigger. Everyone laughs, not because they don't know it's a great kill, because they are making very, very sure you don't start thinking you're better than the rest of the group. It's a group chat roast with actual survival implications attached. And if even that fails to land, Stage 3, Ostracism. This is where it stops being funny. You wake up one morning and nobody in your camp will look at you. Nobody offers you food. Nobody includes you when the hunting party leaves at dawn. You're standing in the middle of 30 people you've known your entire life, and to every single one of them, you have functionally stopped existing. For a hunter-gatherer, this isn't a mild social inconvenience. It's close to a slow death sentence. Survival meant shared food, shared defense, shared knowledge of where water and game actually were. Cut off from all of that, alone, in unfamiliar country, your odds got bad, fast. Most people cracked here, changed their behavior on the spot, or packed up and tried their luck with a different band, somewhere their reputation hadn't traveled yet. The prehistoric version of quietly moving cities because everyone at your last job hated you. But some people didn't bend. And for the ones who didn't, there was one final stage, which brings us back to Pugnana. In cross-cultural research compiled by Boehm and primatologist Richard Wrangham, something shows up in the data that should genuinely stop you. Across a number of documented hunter-gatherer societies, the recorded rate of execution, the entire band collectively agreeing to kill a member who wouldn't stop threatening everyone else, reached, in some of these societies, as high as 10 to 20% of adults over extended periods of time. Read that back slowly. Not 10 to 20% of criminals, 10 to 20% of adults, over time. That is a genuinely wild number, and it flips the entire assumption most of us are carrying around without realizing it. We tend to picture ancient punishment as some brutal chief crushing the weak underfoot. What researchers keep actually finding, over and over, is the opposite. Ordinary people banding together, using escalating social pressure, and in the worst cases, killing, specifically to stop any single person from becoming too powerful in the first place. Punishment wasn't invented by tyrants to control everyone else. It was invented by everyone else specifically so a tyrant never got the chance to exist. And that's exactly the situation you were walking into at the start of this video. Pugnana had already killed 5 people. The elders concluded he couldn't be allowed to continue, and they picked 2 people, not soldiers, not officials, just 2 men from the community, to carry that decision out. There was no trial, no written law he'd technically broken off some list. Just dozens of separate minds, over time, independently landing on the exact same conclusion. This cannot go on. And once enough of those minds agreed, his fate stopped being between him and any one person he'd wronged. It became something the entire group owned, together. For context on how rare this kind of extreme step actually was, researchers studying groups like the Juhuansi and the Kalahari have tracked homicide rates over decades, and they're often lower than modern industrialized countries, not higher. This wasn't chaos. It was the opposite of chaos. It was an intensely regulated system, most of the time enforced with nothing more violent than talking. Okay, so here's the question that should genuinely be nagging at you right now. Why would you personally risk conflict, gossip, confrontation, worse, over someone who didn't even wrong you directly? If some guy hoards meat from someone else's hunt, and it wasn't your meat, why does part of your brain still light up with irritation on a total stranger's behalf? This is where the story stops being about ancient bands and starts being about the actual wiring sitting inside your skull right now, today. Reading this, researchers in evolutionary psychology, specifically Lita Cosmides and John Tooby, proposed that the human brain evolved something oddly specific, a cheater detection mechanism. A mental tripwire that fires almost instantly the moment it looks like someone is taking a benefit from the group without giving anything back. And before you assume this is some quirky modern habit we picked up from capitalism, group projects, or reality television, it isn't. When researchers tested this exact cognitive skill among Amazonian hunter-horticulturalist communities, groups with essentially zero exposure to markets, contracts, or courtrooms, they were just as fast and just as accurate at spotting a cheater as college students getting tested in a lab on the other side of the planet. Different continent, different economy, different everything. Same sharp little alarm bell going off in the brain. Which strongly suggests this was never a rule someone sat you down and taught you. It's closer to something you were quietly born already knowing. A survival tool your ancestors could not have functioned without. Now, quick honesty pause, because I'm not going to pretend the science on this is fully settled, which would be an oddly fitting way to lose credibility on a video specifically about punishing dishonesty. Some researchers describe what we've been talking about as altruistic punishment, the idea that humans will personally eat a cost, take on real risk, just to punish someone who cheated a total stranger, gaining nothing for themselves directly. Laboratory cooperation games back this up repeatedly. People punish cheaters even when it costs them money and gets them nothing back. But when researchers went looking for this exact behavior out in the real world, including fieldwork with the Hadza people of Tanzania, the picture got messier. People punished those who cheated them personally, constantly. But punishing a stranger's cheater at real cost for zero direct benefit, far rarer outside the lab than inside it. Some anthropologists now argue the lab experiments might be overselling how noble ancient punishment really was. In actual hunter-gatherer life, the far more common move wasn't dramatic confrontation. It was quietly cutting a known cheater out of future cooperation and finding better partners instead. Less heroic, more practical. Honestly, probably smarter. The debate isn't resolved. But across every version of this research, one thing holds steady. Humans, nearly everywhere anyone has looked, are constantly, almost unconsciously keeping score of who cooperates, who cheats, and who has earned their way out of the group. Put the 2 threads together now. A brain wired with an automatic cheater alarm, and a social toolkit gossip, ridicule, ostracism, and at the outer edge, collective execution, built specifically to act on whatever that alarm detects. This combination did something almost no other species on the planet manages to pull off. It let groups of unrelated humans, not family, not blood, cooperate at real scale, for real stakes, for tens of thousands of years, without a single written law anywhere. Chimpanzees cooperate, sure, mostly with close allies, in small numbers, backed by raw physical power. Human bands did something genuinely stranger. Dozens of unrelated people, sharing food with others who might never repay them directly, held together by nothing but reputation and the quiet shared threat of consequences. Punishment, awkward, costly, occasionally brutal, might be one of the load-bearing walls that made that entire arrangement possible in the first place. So go back to that walk one more time. You, heading toward camp, carrying out a decision that was never really yours alone. It belonged to everyone who talked about it around every fire for days before you ever picked up a weapon. That's the uncomfortable, genuinely fascinating truth sitting underneath this whole video. Long before courts, before kings, before a single law was ever carved into stone anywhere on Earth, humans had already built something doing the exact same job. Messier, crueler, sometimes, but startlingly effective. Not a system built to protect the powerful, a system built by ordinary people, specifically so that no one could ever become too powerful to stop. So here's a thought worth sitting with. The next time you feel that small, sharp flash of irritation at someone who cuts a line, breaks a promise, or takes credit for work they didn't do, that instinct isn't random, and it isn't you being petty. It might be one of the oldest, most load-bearing pieces of software the human mind has ever run. Older than writing, older than kings, possibly older than the words you'd even use to explain why it's happening. You've been running this program your entire life without ever once reading the manual. Now you have. So honestly, if you'd been born into one of these bands, which one are you? The gossiper, the mocker, or the person two others are quietly walking toward, about to have a very serious conversation with? Let me know in the comments.
Subscribe.